Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Can you imagine an 18-year-old boy sitting in an airport waiting to board this first plane to Vietnam? Behind him, for many years, he's been dreaming about being in the Army ever since he heard a challenge from President John F. Kennedy to do what you can do for your country. He wanted to join the service. He's made that happen. He's been through basic training. He's been through advanced infantry training, and he's learned how to jump out of perfectly good airplanes. And he thinks he's ready to go to Vietnam. That person was me. When I boarded that train for Vietnam, or that plane for Vietnam, I had no idea really what was up there. I had ideas in my head, but nothing that was close to the reality I would soon learn. When we got close to Vietnam airspace, the pilot came out of his cockpit and told us that the Air Force has a tradition similar to the Navy. If anything goes wrong, the captain is the last one to leave the ship. And then he added, if you see me pass you on the way out, you just became the captain. Well, we arrived without anybody even shooting at us, and it was pretty quiet. I got sent to my individual unit, the 9th Infantry Division in Mekong Delta of Vietnam. When I got to my first unit place at Camp Bearcat, my particular company was out on operations that day, and so I was waiting, and I was on guard duty waiting for them to come back in. Well, all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. We got fire from every direction. We were firing back. We didn't know that we were part of the infamous Tet Offensive of 1968, where they were attacking us. It's like they were everybody all over that country. We were grossly outnumbered. We were probably at least 3 or 4 to 1, and doing just everything we could just to keep them out of our perimeter. They finally breached our perimeter, but we were in bunkers, and we were surviving in bunkers. My job, I never fired a shot. I was the assistant machine gunner, and my job was to make sure the machine gunner didn't run out of ammunition or didn't have any problems with his machine gun. If he got hit, of course, I would become the machine gunner. But as I'm doing this, I'm exposed to bullets that are flying by. I've seen tracer bullets from the enemy come by close enough that I could have reached out and touched them. And I realized that this is not a healthy climate. But I got through that climate, got through that. We got through the night. We were still being attacked in the morning. And we finally had relief from the C-40 gunships that they called Puff the Magic Dragon that came and gave us air support, finished off the enemy and broke the attack. When we got out, we literally had to dig our way through bodies to get out of our bunker. We had killed so many of the enemy that we had to put them in several piles, or probably well over 200, probably close to 200 people that were dead. And we only had 2 dead and 8 wounded, which is bad. But when I consider the enormity of what the enemy lost, it dawned on me what a soldier, regardless of what uniform he wears, what he puts on the line every day. These men had families just like I had. Some of them had wives. Some of them had children. And I cried. I didn't cry for our wounded. I cried for the just senselessness of war. And I was really, really excited about that. I got my first promotion as a result of that. I would get 4 promotions in the time I was in Vietnam, and each one was what we called a blood promotion. When one of my buddies got killed, I took over that position. If I could handle that position, I got the stripes that went with it. Now, it's a record to be proud of, except when I think about the cost that was paid was by other people giving their lives. I'm not so happy about that, and it brings tears to my eyes. But it wasn't all blood and gore. We had times where we had just wonderful memories. One of mine was we had a program where we would go into villages and we would meet with the people and do what we call civic action programs. And I got assigned to an orphanage. And I and several of my buddies went and we helped them build furniture and things for the orphanage. And we also got to play with the kids. That was my favorite thing, is to play with the kids. Their very first day, we had a hunk of rope that we took with us and we played tug of war. And all the kids were on one side and I was on the other, and they're tugging and tugging. And I heard them start to count, and they didn't realize that I understood what they were saying. And I knew that when they got to 3, they were going to let go. And so they did high ball, and when they let go, I just went head over heels, falling out. They're all laughing like crazy. They must have thought I was the dumbest sergeant in the U.S. Army, because every time they played that joke, I fell for it and went head over heels for them. I and my buddies would send home to our families and tell them the things that the kids needed. That they needed clothes, they needed books, they needed food. Our family would send us those things, with candy, of course, also, because we're dealing with kids. But they also sent diapers, and we all got a kick out of that, because in Vietnam, the children that are that young don't wear diapers. They just go bare bottom naked until their house broke. But it didn't go to waste. The nuns sewed all those diapers into nice, beautiful uniform shirts for everybody. And so everything got used properly. One of the other things the kids loved to do is to have me tell them stories, to read in their storybooks. And they had these storybooks that had been read over and over and over, that they were beginning to get, you could almost read the second page to the other page. I would read these stories, and one day I was getting kind of just a little bit fun-loving, and I decided I'm going to see if they're really paying attention. And so I changed the words. Red fish, blue fish, we all like to eat the fish. And they, oh no, Sergeant Dave, number 10. They were very angry that I changed their story. And it took them a long time to forgive me for that. A few other stories. I came out of the field one day, and after an operation, and the CO called me into his office and told me, Sergeant Coffman, I've got some bad news for you. While you were out on this particular mission, the city got shelled and the orphanage took several direct hits from mortars. And there were a few people killed and injured. And when you go there today, I just want you to know what happened, and you're going to be repairing things. And what I wanted you to beware. So when I got there and saw what had happened, I could still see blood on the ground here and there. So I knew the carnage that had gone on. I'm just dumbfounded. I couldn't stand the idea of how could they take this out on little kids. And I'm crying as I'm cleaning up the mess. And when I'm through, I went to the Mother Superior and I asked her, do you still even want us to come here for the kids? And her reply was, Sergeant Dave, if you don't come, we'll love them. Mr. Toastmaster.